Chapter 421, Taking Advantage of Their Perilous State. Who the hell are you? Shintu Nantian was beginning to feel suspicious about Yi Yun's identity. It was no longer a surprise that Yun Yantian had a grudge against him. Shintu Nantian did not believe a 15-year-old child would have any close connections with him. Maybe Yun Yantian's family had been killed by him. Unfortunately, as Shintu Nantian was ruthless, he had killed a lot of people. Hence, he had grudges with many people, so he could not immediately figure out who Yi Yun was. Yi Yun ignored Shintu Nantian's words. With a stroke of his chin, he leaned over and grabbed Shintu Nantian's hand. "What are you doing?" Shintu Nantian was powerless at this moment, and he was like a flickering flame. How could he resist Yi Yun? He only felt pain in his fingers as Yi Yun took his interspatial ring off. Yun. Shintu Nantian's interspatial ring contained a large portion of his wealth. As the heir to the Shintu family clan, Shintu Nantian naturally had tremendous wealth. Back then, when Yi Yun was captured by Shintu Nantian did not even take a look at Yi Yun's interspatial ring as Yi Yun was too poor compared to him. But now, with the tables turned, it was completely different. Shintu Nantian's interspatial ring was very attractive to Yi Yun. He could not waste whatever good things there were in the ring. In for a penny, in for a pound, Yi Yun also took the 1,000-hand granny's interspatial ring. The two rings were extremely high in quality. Their interior spaces were more than 10 times larger than what Yi Yun was wearing. And the ring Yi Yun was wearing was given to him by Lin Shintong along with the soul nurturing pill. If Yi Yun wore that ring back in the Tai Divine Kingdom, the difference would be even greater. Nice ring! Yi Yun praised with glee. At this moment, Shintu Nantian and the 1,000-hand granny were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. However, they could do nothing. When the Lin family locked them up, they would not take advantage of their perilous state and steal their interspatial ring. In the Tian Yuan world, powerful families had to care for their face, so they did not do such things. However, this so-called powerful family vibe clearly did not exist in Yi Yun's eyes. Shintu Nantian and the 1,000-hand granny had a mental connection with their respective rings. If anyone touched their interspatial rings, they would feel it. If the other person's mental powers were not as strong as theirs, they would not be able to open the interspatial ring. Of course, it was completely different for the current Shintu Nantian. Shintu Nantian's mental state was terrible. He could not even complete a single seal of the mystic crystal hand properly. Yi Yun sank his mental energy into Shintu Nantian's interspatial ring in a no-holds-barred manner. He ruthlessly wiped the spiritual connection. Ah! Shintu Nantian let out a scream. He clutched his head and painfully fell to the ground. At the moment Yi Yun wiped the mental connection, Shintu Nantian felt as if a chunk of his brain had suddenly been sliced off. It was so painful that it made him break out into cold sweat. Boundless hatred rose up within Shintu Nantian's heart. He had never felt so much hate in his life. His body was seriously injured, his cultivation level was suppressed, and he was locked in a dungeon. A top-grade woman that was about to be his was gone. He was then brutally beaten by an ant-like person who later stole his interspatial ring and wiped away his mental mark. At this moment, Yi Yun was casually rummaging through Shintu Nantian's interspatial ring. When Shintu Nantian looked at his ring being rummaged through, this humiliation made him feel like his eyes were bursting. Yi Yun quickly finished sweeping through Shintu Nantian's interspatial ring. He made a few discoveries. First was a pile of jade scrolls. Inside them were all sorts of cultivation techniques and heritage. Some of the heritage was extremely valuable in the Shintu family clan. It required a sufficient number of family contribution points to exchange for them. There were about 4 to 5 of those heritage scrolls. There was also an ancient jade scroll that had complex runes engraved on it. With a simple search, he confirmed that it was the ancient Desolate Heaven technique heritage. Without a doubt, this jade scroll was taken out of the Great Empress mystic realm by the Shintu family clan. Other than the Jade Scroll, Yi-Yun also found a large bunch of elixirs. Inside all these exquisite elixir bottles were soul-nurturing and wound-healing medicines that were top grade. Besides these elixir bottles, there were 3 big chests. These chests were made of a special metal. There were even seals on the exterior of each of them. Yi-Yun took the chests out and used the sonic deathblade to open the lock. With a kick, he opened the lid. Immediately, a pure and powerful heaven-earth yuan qi surged out, filling the entire dungeon. Within the chests were neatly arranged desolate bone relics. These desolate bone relics were extremely pure in quality and they were uniform. Although they weren't that precious, they were after all 3 huge chests worth. In the warrior's world, a uniform quality of desolate bone relics were often used as common currency to purchase all sorts of items. These 3 chests were not used by Shintu Nantian for cultivation. Instead, it was his wealth. He could use it to splurge when he was out in the city. Yi-Yun did not stand on ceremony as he kept the 3 large chests of relics. Finally, it was weapons. Shintu Nantian was a sword user. Yi-Yun took an azure sword out. It was Shintu Nanchan's companion sword. Seeing his companion sword in Yi-Yun's hands, Shintu Nanchan's eyes turned red. This was the item that was worth the most in his interspatial ring. It was given to him by the Shintu Patriarch when he came of age. A gift from the Shintu Patriarch would be obviously valuable. Fine sword. Yi-Yun pulled the azure long sword out. As he brandished it, Shintu Nanchan's body trembled as he clenched his fists. His fingernails sank deep into his palms. His beloved sword was now nonchalantly being held in Yi-Yun's hands. This feeling was like his most beloved woman that was dedicated to him was now being blasphemed by Yi-Yun. Yunyan Tian, you deserve a horrible death. Shintu Nantian sent a nasty curse out, but at this moment, he felt some pain in his soul. It was like a 10,000-pound sledgehammer had slammed on it. His face went pale like a sheet of paper. Taking advantage of Shintu Nanchan's weak mental state, Yi-Yun ruthlessly wiped his mental connection with the azure sword. Yi-Yun did not stand on ceremony as he kept Shintu Nanchan's sword. He was just in need of a sword. Previously, in the Tai Divine City, the Tai Divine City elders had promised to give Yi-Yun a sword and saber set. However, as the Tai Divine Kingdom was attacked by a desolate beast horde, the matter of giving him the weapon set was put on hold. As for the sword and saber sets that Yi-Yun had, other than the mysterious rusted sword, the rest were extremely common. Unfortunately, despite finding so many treasures in the ring, Yi-Yun did not find any records regarding the Great Empress Mystic Realm. This was reasonable as the Great Empress Mystic Realm's secret was not a cultivation technique manual. It could not be encoded in a jade scroll. It was meaningless to let Shintu Nantian carry it around with him. After rummaging through Shintu Nanchan's ring, Yi-Yun decided to rummage through the Thousand-Hand Granny's ring. However, despite having her cultivation level restricted, the Thousand-Hand Granny's mental energies were still fine. Her soul was not damaged. Yi-Yun attempted once, but he was unable to wipe the Thousand-Hand Granny's mental connection. He actually felt a spiritual backlash, causing a dull pain in his soul. Yi-Yun clenched his eyebrows and turned to look at the Thousand-Hand Granny. She looked hatefully at Yi-Yun and sneered, "Little bastard, do you think you are able to wipe my mental connection? Dream on." Before she finished her words, Yi-Yun had already raised his feet as he kicked the Thousand-Hand Granny's face with all his strength. Boom! With an explosive sound, Yi-Yun's kick had slammed the disheveled Thousand-Hand Granny's head into the dungeon stone walls. Ah! The Thousand-Hand Granny screamed as the chains binding her body began to clink and clank. Yi-Yun had no mercy as he kept sending out his right foot. Every attack targeted the Thousand-Hand Granny's face. Without any cultivation and any yuan qi protecting her body, the Thousand-Hand Granny was just an ordinary granny. How could she withstand Yi-Yun stamping on her? The Thousand-Hand Granny was trampled by Yi-Yun till she was dazed, and at this moment, the thousand-hand granny felt a terrible pain in her head. At the moment when her thoughts were in a state of confusion, her mental connection mark on her interspatial ring had been ruthlessly wiped by Yi-Yun. Yi-Yun held the thousand-hand granny's interspatial ring and shook his head. Why do you make things so hard? You are already locked in here and your cultivation has been suppressed. Why are you trying to withhold a ring? Yi-Yun rummaged through the thousand-hand granny's interspatial ring, completely ignoring her ferocious eyes. There was even more good stuff in the thousand-hand granny's interspatial ring. There were 5 large chests of desolate bone relics in it. There were plenty of cultivation technique manuals, weapons, and medicines. Their grades were even higher than those in Shintu Nanshan's ring. And Yi-Yun found a saber in the thousand-hand granny's ring as he wished. This saber was not used by the thousand-hand granny as it was just part of a collection of hers. The saber was blood red in color. There was a lifelike ghost head engraved on the saber handle, which made it look extremely evil. On the saber blade, the words Blood Red Lotus were inscribed. Red Lotus Saber. Yi-Yun casually brandished the saber and the blood-colored beams looked like a blood-infused storm was surging over. This saber had clearly drunk a lot of fresh blood as it had killed countless times. Just the killing chi gathered on the saber was enough to make it as a murderous weapon. Fine saber. Yi-Yun was very satisfied. This saber was just a collection of the thousand-hand granny, so it did not have any mental marks left behind by the thousand-hand granny. Yi-Yun very happily imprinted his mental mark on the saber. Little bastard, I swear I will grind your bones to dust. The thousand-hand granny shouted hoarsely. She was so angry that her entire body was trembling. The chains were also clinkering around. Yi-Yun ignored the old hag and carried on rummaging through the ring. He opened every elixir bottle and gave a sniff. Suddenly, the corners of his lips formed a little arc. He had found it. She really had it. Yi-Yun opened a blue jade bottle. As he gently overturned the bottle, a full-bodied ice blue pill that emitted a biting chill rolled out. It could be said that this pill was something unforgettable for Yi-Yun. This was because he had been force-fed one before. Its name was the 7 Noxious Divining Pill. Chapter 422, Helping You Heal. The 7 Noxious Divining Pill was actually not a poisonous item. It only contained an extremely colding energy that was very oppressive. If a person with lacking a cultivation base swallowed it, it could cause the person's meridians to break, crippling one's cultivation base. Seeing Yi-Yun hold the 7 Noxious Divining Pill, the mouths of the thousand-hand granny and Shintu Nantian twitched. However, they did not believe that Yi-Yun would be able to identify the pill. This was because this pill was extremely valuable. It was a secret concoction made by the Shintu family clan. A junior like Yi-Yun would never have come into contact with it. Yi-Yun played with the pill. Just holding it made Yi-Yun feel the cold biting into his body. Yi-Yun could still clearly remember the feeling of the frost chi entering his bone marrow from 2 months ago. Back then, when the frost chi rushed into Yi-Yun's dantian and all of his blood vessels, it had made him feel an extreme cold that came from deep within his soul. Following that, even the pure Yang Yuan chi that Yi-Yun cultivated was rapidly eroded by the frost chi. As a result, his face had turned pale and his body trembled. Icicles then formed on his eyebrows and hair. Following that, even his black hair had turned white. Yi-Yun's back faced Shintu Nantian as he held the pill in between his index finger and thumb. In front of the dungeon's candle light, he could see through the crystal clear pill. The flickering candle light looked unreal and beautiful through it. Yi-Yun squinted his eyes. This pill was the one that Shintu Nantian had fed him, leading him to feel endless pain, nearly pushing him to the brink of his death. Yi-Yun spent quite a long period of time admiring this pill. Behind Yi-Yun, the thousand-hand granny and Shintu Nantian looked each other in the eye. None of them knew what Yi-Yun was doing. This kid, why is he so interested in the 7 Noxious Divining Pill? He cannot be, Shintu Nantian was feeling alarmed. To have such a dangerous pill fall into this kid's hands, and having his life completely in the grasp of another person did not feel good when he was completely unable to put up any resistance. Impossible. This little bastard is not from some famous family that can be seen at a glance. He must be some bumpkin that Su Jia found in some remote region. With his experience, how can he recognize the 7 noxious divining pill? He may even think that it is some treasure. The Thousand-Hand Granny dismissed Yi Yun's origins. In the Tian Yuan world, those from big family clans tended to have a form of superiority complex. The big family clans had such immense amounts of heritage that it made it hard to comprehend. So how could a warrior from humble origins compare to them? Hence, the Thousand-Hand Granny completely despised Yi Yun. In her eyes, Yi Yun was just a small, ant-like figure. She was just feeling extremely pissed that she was now in his hands. As Yi Yun admired the 7 noxious divining pill, he suddenly opened his mouth. I cannot find any news of the great Empress Mystic Realm in neither of your interspatial rings. Upon hearing this, Shintu Nantian sneered. He was thinking, was that not obvious? Of course, he would never say those words out aloud. This was definitely not a good time to agitate Yi Yun. It seems the both of you have no intentions of revealing information of the great Empress Mystic Realm? Yi Yun also said. Another obvious pile of bullshit. Shintu Nantian knew that the great Empress Mystic Realm was the only trump card keeping him alive. He definitely would not reveal it. For this Yun kid to say something so idiotic, he must have intelligence problems. As Shintu Nantian was having these malicious thoughts, Yi Yun suddenly turned around as he gave Shintu Nantian and the Thousand-Hand Granny a playful look. Shintu Nantian's heart sank. He did not know what the meaning of Yi Yun's gaze was. At this moment, the Thousand-Hand Granny's face was sullen as she said with her husky voice, Junior, return the Eternal Frost Sword to Tianer and the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill to me. These 2 items should not be defiled by you. If you do not, then when my Shintu family clan comes to negotiate, it will not be something let off that simply. The Eternal Frost Sword was Shintu Nantian's companion sword, which was also the Azure Sword Yi Yun had kept. It was the most valuable thing Shintu Nantian had. It would be very normal if the Shintu family clan wanted back the sword when the Shintu family clan began negotiations. As for the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill? Yi Yun hesitated for a bit. He was holding a Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill? Seeing the Thousand-Hand Granny's muddy eyes looking at the 7 noxious divining pill in his hand, Yi Yun suddenly understood the intentions of the old hag. You say I am holding a Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill? Yi Yun seemed slightly stunned as he looked at the pill in his hand. What do you think? The Thousand-Hand Granny smiled disdainfully. What a bumpkin, not from a good family. So what if you have some talent? You can't even identify precious items. You can't even identify the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill. The Thousand-Hand Granny mocked Yi Yun with a queer voice. The Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill she mentioned was much more famous. Besides, in the Thousand-Hand Granny's interspatial ring, there was a jade scroll that introduced the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill. This Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill looked extremely similar to the 7 noxious divining pill. Even an experienced alchemist would not be able to distinguish between the 2 at a glance. However, the effects of the 2 pills were extremely different. The Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill was an extremely good medicine. Ignoring the difficulty at refining it, just the ingredients needed to refine it were just slightly inferior to the materials needed to make the Great Empress Relic. The Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill is not something a person with your cultivation level can use. You are a desolate Heaven Master apprentice, whose combat power is not even worth a glance. That pill you have is useless. Return it to me, or in the negotiation in a few days' time we would definitely talk about this. Your Lin family will definitely be put in a negative position. You still want to stay in the Lin family. Do you think Matriarch Lin will condone of you messing around? The Thousand-Hand Granny's words were extremely reasonable, so much that they nearly made Iyun believe them. However, Iyun shook his head gently. Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill? 7 Noxious Divining Pill? If it were juniors with limited insight, they would not have been able to distinguish between the two extremely similar pills. However, Iyun had personally eaten the 7 Noxious Divining Pill before. That pain due to the biting cold that reached the bone was how he remembered this pill. So how could he misidentify the 7 Noxious Divining Pill? You are saying this is the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill? Iyun smiled. The Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill was a treasured medicine. The Thousand Hand Grannies Act was purposely done to make him misidentify it. Seeing Iyun's cold mask and teasing tone, the Thousand Hand Granny's heart skipped a beat. Could this kid know something? She wanted to let Iyun think that he was holding on to the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill. If Iyun carried on rummaging through her interspatial ring, he would see the Jade Scroll introducing the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill, which was almost identical to the 7 Noxious Divining Pill. As such, Iyun would then definitely believe in her words. And in the Jade Scroll, it had introduced how juniors with weaker cultivation levels could use the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill. One could drink the soup made from melting the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill with water. Once a Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill was made into a soup, its medicinal properties would slowly disperse, then, even a junior at the Yuan Foundation realm would be able to intake it. The Thousand Hand Granny believed that with Iyun's greedy character, the more she pretended the preciousness of the pill, the more she said that the Shintu family clan would pursue the matter of the pill, the more he would not hand the pill back. He would deceive the Lin family and secretly take the pill and intake it after smelting it with water. In that case, he would be swallowing a 7 Noxious Divining Pill. Finally, when the frost chi entered his body, his meridians would be damaged, crippling his cultivation. This result was what the Thousand Hand Granny was dreaming to see. Impossible, with his knowledge, it is impossible for him to distinguish the difference between the 7 Noxious Divining Pill and the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill. As the Thousand Hand Granny was thinking, Iyun began speaking slowly. I see, the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill. I definitely would not dare to take such a precious pill. If I were to take it, then the Shintu family clan would definitely insist on this point during the negotiations. Then, I will not be able to withhold my face and this would affect the smooth negotiations. If I cannot obtain any news of the great Empress Mystic Realm, then I would have sinned greatly. Iyun's willingness to admit his mistake shocked the Thousand Hand Granny and Shintu Nantian. The Thousand Hand Granny was afraid of Iyun's suspicions, so she had acted out in that way. She never expected it to be counterproductive. This kid was too flippant in his attitude. How could he change his attitude that easily? Shintu Nantian and the Thousand Hand Granny quickly tried to think of something in the hopes of luring Iyun into swallowing the 7 Noxious Divining Pill, without making him suspicious. However, at this moment, Iyun had already walked before Shintu Nantian and smiled. Actually, both of your wounds are indeed quite terrible. You are both guests of the Lin family, yet you are so badly injured. I feel sorry about it. Since this Frost Soul Chill Silkworm Pill is so precious, then I will feed it to you. This way, you can nurse your wounds, lest the Lin family gets criticized for its poor hospitality. As Iyun said this, he pinched open Shintu Nantian's mouth. Shintu Nantian's expression immediately changed. What are you doing? Shintu Nantian was inexplicably horrified, but Iyun pretended to look puzzled. Helping you heal. As Iyun said this, he placed the 7 Noxious Divining Pill into Shintu Nantian's mouth. The moment the pill touched Shintu Nantian's tongue, the biting cold entered his body, scaring Shintu Nantian silly. His lips turned pale, his expression ashened. He was nearly scared out of his wits. For a person like Shintu Nantian, death was not as terrifying as the damaging of all his meridians and losing his cultivation. That was 10,000 times more terrifying than death. No! Stop! Shintu Nantian's eyes turned bloodshot as he struggled with his life. However, how could he resist Iyun when his cultivation level was completely suppressed? The 7 noxious divining pill began to melt in his mouth. Traces of the medicinal essence began to enter Shintu Nanshan's meridians and blood vessels. Kid, stop. The thousand-hand granny was also terrified as she shouted loudly. However, Iyun simply turned a deaf ear. Little bastard, I will kill you. The thousand-hand granny charged forward, but Iyun gave a sidekick, sending her flying backwards. Pang! The thousand-hand granny slammed into the wall in a pathetic manner. Seeing her beloved grandchild about to lose his cultivation, her face turned ashen. You know what pill this is? The thousand-hand granny said with a trembling voice. At this moment, she finally realized this possibility. I can recognize the 7 noxious divining pill even if it turned into water. Iyun said nonchalantly as the thousand-hand granny turned dumbfounded. How did he recognize it? He had even accurately called out the name of the pill. And at this moment, the 7 noxious divining pill was still in Shintu Nanshan's mouth. He was struggling not to swallow it as he felt full of despair. Chapter 423, So It Was You. Translator, Sitalan. Editor, Sitalan. Shintu Nantian had never felt so helpless before. In the past, he was the beholder of the fate of others. He enjoyed the feeling of having absolute power in deciding a person's life and death. No matter how the person in his hands pleaded, he would do as he pleased. However, now his life was in the hands of another. No matter how he begged or took on a soft stance, the other party could decide on his fate as he wished. This feeling was pushing Shintu Nantian to the brink of collapse. No. No. Shintu Nantian said with difficulty. He was arrogant by nature, and was greatly hallowed while he grew up. He had never felt this humiliation before. However, now he had to give in. With his present injuries, swallowing the 7 noxious divining pill would definitely cripple his cultivation. There was no doubt about it. Iyun looked deadpan. As he grabbed the thin air, just the mental energy of him being a desolate heaven master could allow him to control the 7 noxious divining pill telekinetically. Stop, quickly stop. The thousand-hand granny was greatly worried. She did not want to see her most talented grandchild be crippled by Iyun. This pill will cripple Tianer's cultivation. If Tianer were to be crippled, he will lose his value. The Shintu family clan will definitely not give you the information of the great Empress Mystic Realm if that were to happen. And I will rather die than tell you. If you do this, you will not be able to achieve anything. The thousand-hand granny hurriedly said. According to Matriarch Lin's intentions, she would not kill or cripple Shintu Nantian. They still needed him to exchange for the information about the great Empress Mystic Realm. Shintu Nantian and the thousand-hand granny knew this, hence they believed Iyun could at most just cause suffering of the flesh, and would not do anything else to them. However, now, with more and more medicinal essence entering Shintu Nanshan's body, the thousand-hand granny became terrified. As Iyun controlled the pill, the corner of his lips curled. Do not worry. How can I really cripple him? I am still counting on young Master Nantian to exchange for that great Empress Mystic Realm. With Iyun saying this, the thousand-hand granny heaved a sigh of relief. At least this little bastard had not lost his rationality. However, seeing Iyun not letting go, the thousand-hand granny angrily said, then quickly stop. If this carries on any further, Tianer will really be crippled of his cultivation. When that happens, if that little witch girl's terminated meridians cannot be joined up, the Lin family will hold you responsible. Do you really think that with your contributions, they will allow you to misbehave? That little witch girl is the person that the Lin family cares about the most. If you spoil the Lin family's plans, no one can save you. Right, what you say makes sense. Iyun said slowly. However, while he spoke, the medicinal essence of the 7 noxious divining pill carried on slowly entering Shintu Nanshan's body. Shintunanshan's face was white. He could no longer say a single word. His body was beginning to tremble slightly from top to bottom. Bit by bit, the frost sheath surged inside Shintunanshan's body. His eyebrows were beginning to form icicles. Ian carried on, to let the Shinto family clan believe that Shintunantian still is of value. I have already decided to at most cripple a tiny bit of his cultivation. In the meantime, I will leave some internal injuries in his meridians. Then, it should be no problem. When Ian said this, the thousand-hand granny's heart skipped a beat. As for Shintunantian, who heard this, he felt like he had crashed down from a pinnacle. For a peerless genius like Shintunantian, if an internal injury was left in his meridians when he was still young, then no matter how much of a genius he would no longer be the top genius of his era. In that case, his status in the family clan would greatly be reduced. Little bastard, you are crazy. The thousand-hand granny quivered with rage. Do you think that by crippling a portion of Tianer's talent, the upper echelons of the family will redeem him with the information about the great Empress Mystic Realm? The Shinto family clan would greatly value a peerless genius who could be the heir. However, if Shintunantian could be replaced, then his value to the Shinto family clan would be greatly reduced. The Shinto patriarch would not hand over something as important as the great Empress Mystic Realm just because of his personal preference. Of course, I will not go too far. I will just leave a tiny internal injury that will affect a tiny bit of his talent. It would not be easy to tell. Besides, would not the both of you help me conceal this fact? When Ian said this, the words that entered the ears of the thousand-hand granny and Shintunantian were like the diabolical laughter of a demon. Getting them to help Ian conceal it. Ian had stabbed them with a knife, yet did not allow for them to tell anyone of it. To think he could think of this. However, in the present situation, they really had to help Ian conceal the fact. This was because they were afraid that the Shinto family clan would give up on them. Be it Shintunantian or the thousand-hand granny, they did not wish to die. They wanted to escape the Lin family. They may sound unyielding, but they were afraid that the Shinto family clan would choose the information of the great Empress Mystic Realm over their lives. In this situation, the thousand-hand granny and Shintunantian naturally could not let the family know that they had already been internally injured. Furthermore, taking a step back, since the 7 noxious divining pill was not completely swallowed, with just a tiny portion taken in, then the hidden injuries would not be too severe. They could still use a certain amount of resources to completely heal it. Of course, it would still affect Shintunanshan's cultivation speed. It would severely impact his future achievements. Just thinking of this made Shintunanshan's heart bleed. He had suffered terribly under this kid, yet he had to help him conceal the fact. This was like having one's teeth being knocked out, but still having to swallow it. The endless pain and hatred consumed Shintunantian. He knew that the medicinal essence of the 7 noxious divining pill he had taken in up to now had already caused irreversible damage to his dantian. And at that moment, Ian suddenly let go. The 7 noxious divining pill was no longer controlled by Ian's mental energy. Shintunantian felt his jaw loosen. He immediately rolled on the ground and spat out the pill. You! Shintunantian grabbed at his neck as he retched while sprawled on the ground. He was trying to vomit out the medicinal essence that had entered his body. However, once the 7 noxious divining pill's medicinal essence entered the body, the frost chi would enter deep into the meridians and dantian, so how could he vomit it out? After retching for a long while, Shintunantian was still unable to get anything out. He sprawled on the ground like a dead dog. You! Shintunantian suddenly looked up. His eyes exuded boundless hatred as he looked at Ian. He had never hated a person this much. Even the hatred for the shepherd boy was just 1% of the hate he felt for this youth. When he thought about the shepherd boy, Shintunanshan's heart suddenly sank. Oh! A few months ago, Shintunantian had set a trap to deal with the shepherd boy. In the end, the shepherd boy ended up killing the myriad imperial king. This caused people within the Shinto family clan to oppose Shinto Nantian as they criticized him. As a result, Shinto Nantian bore a lot of pressure. However, the Shinto patriarch had come forward to suppress the matter. Shinto Nantian naturally hated the shepherd boy to the bone. And all of this was due to another youth. It was because of him protecting the little witch girl time and again. He had distracted Shinto Nantian, giving the desolate race spy an opportunity. If not, Shinto Nantian would not have needed to lay a trap to deal with the shepherd boy. Now, Shinto Nantian recalled the process in which he dealt the youth. He had first thrown him into the dungeon and set a 10-day period. He then spread the news that he would use the dismembering the heart punishment 10 days later to lure the desolate race to come save him. In the dungeon, the youth had been locked in chains and was force-fed a 7 noxious divining pill. Shinto Nantian wanted to cripple the youth's cultivation, so as to prevent him from becoming a future threat even if he was saved. The 7 noxious divining pill was able to do this perfectly. It was not something that anyone should be able to tell and was thus the perfect choice. Thinking carefully about all this, his current experience was very similar. It was as if it was identical. The incredible coincidence of history had been reproduced on himself. Could it be? Shinto Nantian suddenly looked at Iyun with bloodthirsty eyes. It was full of killing intent. The two eyes in front of him slowly overlapped with the hatred-filled eyes of the youth from a few months ago. They were both 15 years old, and this youth recognized the 7 noxious divining pill. Right, with his humble origins, how was he able to recognize the 7 noxious divining pill? How could he be so sure at distinguishing it from the Frost Soul Chill Silkworm pill? It was because he had eaten it before. He remembered all the hate he had in the past. Now, with his schemes, he had perfectly reconstructed them, step by step, to make Shinto Nantian realize it. Back then, what Shinto Nantian did to the youth had been completely reproduced. It's you are that little bastard. Shinto Nantian seemed to go crazy as he howled crazily. He charged at Iyun as he lost his mind. However, what met him was a punch from Iyun. Pang! Iyun's punch hit Shinto Nantian in the face. His face was like an open dye house. His face was completely blue and black, while his nose was bleeding profusely. Shinto Nantian slammed to the ground once again as he fell on his back. He began to laugh bitterly. It's you, that little bastard. It's you. If I knew this earlier, I would have strangled you. No. If I knew this would happen, I would not have used you to lure out the desolate race. I would have dismembered your heart on the spot. I would not have let you die. I would treat you again and again for 1,000 times, for 10,000 years. I would make you wish you could die. I hate you. Hate. Shinto Nantian was like a madman as he scratched crazily at the ground. His knuckles turned white as the flesh of his fingers tore. Pwah! Without any warning, Shinto Nantian spat out a mouthful of blood. His body began to tremble violently. He was nearly on the brink of insanity. He was already full of serious injuries. With Iyun force feeding him a small portion of the 7 noxious divining pill, the Frostchi had already entered his body. With anger then burning his heart, the combination had caused him to vomit blood. This was really vomiting blood from anger. When mortals encountered something that made them enraged, they could die from anger. Typically, a warrior would reach such a stage. They would end up with mental demons. It would become an obsession due to the anger, influencing their cultivation. Now, Iyun had become Shinto Nantian's mental demon. As long as Iyun did not die, that anger would scar Shinto Nantian for life. Iyun, I Shinto Nantian swear that I will make you suffer a living death. Iyun looked at Shinto Nantian. Shinto Nantian had finally recognized him. He did not find it surprising, nor did he mind it. This was because the hatred Yun Yen Tian had brought forth had far exceeded that which he brought forth as Yi Yun. As such, it was no longer a big deal for Shen Tunantian to recognize him. With a hand pressing on his chin, Yi Yun slowly lifted off the mask. Chapter 424, Planting the Evil Energy. With the mask removed, Shen Tunantian saw a very familiar but hated face. Yi Yun! It's really you! Shen Tunantian clenched his fists. His nails pierced his palms till they bled. You clearly swallowed the 7 noxious divining pill. Why? Why isn't your cultivation crippled? Shen Tunantian could not believe that although Yi Yun had been saved a few months ago, Yi Yun should have been a cripple in Shen Tunantian's opinion. Living like that would have been worse than death. However, he never expected that a trivial figure like Yi Yun, that he could crush to death any time, was now standing in front of him, with the control of his destiny. Back then, whatever he did to him had been exactly returned. It was as if an ant he had nonchalantly stepped to death a few months ago had now stepped on him a few months later. An ant stamping a human to death. This was completely an inconceivable matter. Back then, in the Chu royal residence, when Shen Tunantian was disposing of Yi Yun, he never dreamed that there could be such a shocking reversal. Impossible, impossible, how can this be possible? Shen Tunantian repeated this again and again as if he was possessed. Yi Yun squeezed his wrist gently and said lightly, Senior Shepherd Boy has a unique healing method. Furthermore, with me using my mutated eyes, I guided Senior Shepherd Boy so he could heal my meridians. Although there were some twists and turns during the process, it left no lingering side effects. As for you, that might not necessarily be the case. Yi Yun easily pushed the matter of him being healed on the Shepherd Boy. The Shepherd Boy had extraordinary means. For him to be able to come in and out of the battle formation that the Shintu family clan elders had set up even after he was suffering from the Death Heavenly Revolution, it was not surprising that he could heal Yi Yun. Besides, Yi Yun's energy vision was something very mysterious to others. He could say it as he wished. After knowing Yi Yun's true identity, Shen Tunantian was fully set back. His mouth turned agape as his face paled. He fell into a lifeless state. Previously, with the series of severe injuries, and after the series of provocation and torture, Shen Tunantian already was in an extremely provoked state. And now, with the final life-threatening blow hitting him, it made Shen Tunantian unable to accept reality. He could not accept the reversal in destiny. It was a simple matter for an emperor to sentence a beggar to be beheaded. There was nothing much to think about, but who knew that a few months later, the beggar had managed to revolt, imprisoning the emperor and wantonly torturing him. What would the emperor think? It was not enough to describe it as a mental breakdown. The 7 noxious divining pill isn't finished yet. Yi Yun ignored Shen Tunantian as he looked at the 1,000-hand granny. The 1,000-hand granny was alarmed. The white hair on her head began to stand up. Little bastard, you. Before the 1,000-hand granny finished her words, Yi Yun had flicked his fingers, sending the 7 noxious divining pill with his mental energy straight into the 1,000-hand granny's mouth. Ah! The 1,000-hand granny screamed as she lay prostrate on the ground. She desperately tried to vomit, but the 7 noxious divining pill had already flew into her stomach. The terrifying frost sheath slowly began to seep into the 1,000-hand granny's blood vessels. The moment the medicinal essence entered her body, the 1,000-hand granny began to tremble. Her dried lips turned white, while a thin layer of ice formed on her eyebrows and face. The 1,000-hand granny ate even more of the 7 noxious divining pill than Shen Tunantian. However, the 1,000-hand granny's foundation was much better than his. Yi Yun kept his energy vision open all the time as he oversaw the 7 noxious divining pill's medicinal essence being circulated in the 1,000-hand granny's body. Soon, he realized that the medicinal essence was just right. It took some of her lifespan, but it did not completely cripple her cultivation. However, with the frost chi entering her vessels, a residual effect had been left behind, causing her strength to be greatly damaged. You will die a horrible death." The thousand-hand granny gasped. Every breath of hers released icy particles. However, this cursing was no different to a mosquito bite for Yun. Only a bitch would begin to use nasty words to condemn the other party when she could not beat someone in a fight. Seeing the medicinal essence begin to erode the thousand-hand granny's cultivated yuan qi, Yun touched his interspatial ring and took out a pile of nearly weathered beast bones. There was still one final matter. Yun held the red-eyed wolf's bones, which contained that black evil energy, in his hands. With a thought, the dark energy was extracted by the purple crystal. While the thousand-hand granny and Shintu Nantian were busy struggling, Yun controlled the black energy and caused it to fly straight into Shintu Nantian's heart like a ghost from the back. Phew! The black gas seemed to be like a ghost as it silently pierced straight through Shintu Nantian's flesh. That second, Shintu Nantian's body felt a sudden tremble, but then, there was not much change. Yun did not want Shintu Nantian or the thousand-hand granny to see the black gas entering Shintu Nantian's body. If they knew that he could control the black energy as he wished, it would be too outrageous. After finishing everything, Yun let out a long sigh of relief. He felt extremely good. Although he was good at enduring and hiding his intentions, it did not mean he liked it. He liked to end grudges quickly, living a carefree life. Yun never thought of himself as a gentleman. If he had a grudge, he would definitely seek revenge. He would not pretend to be magnanimous, even though he clearly hated the other person. As for the saying for a nobleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too long, Yun felt it was quite a tragic thing. If revenge could be accomplished in a short period of time, who would endure for 10 years? Yun walked out of the dungeon with his mind at ease. At the dungeon's entrance, he saw a girl, Lin Shintong. Lin Shintong was as usual, wearing her spotless white dress. She clearly looked out of place in the dark dungeon entrance. She looked like a fairy who had strayed into hell. Seeing Yun's look, Lin Shintong's lips curved slightly. "You went to see Shintu Nantian?" "Yes." Yun nodded. Matriarch Lin originally intended to spare Shintu Nantian in exchange for information about the Great Empress Mystic Realm. However, with Yun's sinister idea, he first tortured Shintu Nantian before they let him go. Lin Shintong was also aware of this. Lin Shintong noticed that Yun had already taken off his mask. It was apparent that Shintu Nantian now knew Yun's true identity. She did not know what thoughts Shintu Nantian had as a result. Upon thinking of this, Lin Shintong revealed a rare playful smile as she said, "Whoever offends you would surely have bad luck befall them. They would definitely not have a good ending." Yun awkwardly frowned. Although he had done things which he was not ashamed of, having Lin Shintong realize it still made him feel like he had been caught doing something bad. "Am I that evil?" Lin Shintong chuckled, "Of course not. There is no need to show mercy against an enemy. Whatever you did was right. Actually, with a friend like you, I feel at ease. You can do many things that I'm unable to do, and some of them might be things that I would not have thought of. My strength is clearly higher than yours, but yet, I feel like I am being protected by you." As Lin Shintong said, she gave a knowing laugh. This was an uncanny feeling. She had an unfortunate life growing up by being left out. Although the matriarch was good to her, the matriarch was in a high position. She was the decider of the internal matters of the Lin family, so there was a sense of distance felt by Lin Shintong. The matriarch had too many grandchildren, and Lin Shintong was just one of them. This made Lin Shintong behave very carefully, even in front of the matriarch. Only when Su Jie appeared did Lin Shintong first feel that she could rely on someone. However, Su Jie was after all an elder. It was normal for her to be protected by him. And now, this sense of protection had appeared from a youth that was in the same generation as her. This was her first time, which made it feel very wonderful. When the Lin family first came into contact with Yun, Lin Shintong was actually very surprised. Back then, she had never expected that she would be protected by Yi Yun, allowing her to get out of the crisis and her tragic fate. It was like a dream. This time, you have completely offended Shintu Nantian. He can't wait to drink your blood and eat your flesh. You need to be careful in the future. Lin Shintong turned serious as she warned Yi Yun. Yi Yun knew this, of course, as he said, "I know, but there is no other way. Just from me disrupting their medicine trial, it is enough for them to want to kill me. Even if I don't do anything in the future, it would be useless." However, this time, Shintu Nantian sure has suffered a great deal. For him to carry on being a leader amongst the younger generation would be no easy task. Shintu Nantian's tragic state was a long story. His soul was damaged, his body was damaged, and the frost poison had entered his body. From the poison and the anger forming a mental demon in him, he had vomited blood out in anger. All of these added up would definitely affect Shintu Nantian no matter how determined he was. Let's go. Follow me to Jade Bamboo Peak. You might as well live in Jade Bamboo Peak for the coming days. The matriarch wants to chat with you. Besides, people from the Shintu family clan will soon arrive. They should be planning on bringing information about the Great Empress Mystic Realm. Lin Shintong's words made Yi Yun think. For the information regarding the Great Empress Mystic Realm, the Shintu family clan sure was fast. This also showed how important Shintu Nantian was to the Shintu family clan. This was good news. Could they really discover a good solution to heal Lin Shintong in the Great Empress Mystic Realm? Chapter 425, Slander. Jade Bamboo Peak was covered in lush green bamboo trees. Inside the bamboo forest stood a tower named Jade Bamboo Little Tower. It did not have a large area, but it was extremely exquisite. It was where Matriarch Lin stayed. Other than a few grand elders who dedicated themselves to cultivating so they could extend their lifespans and did not question worldly matters, Matriarch Lin was actually in charge of the Lin family. Jade Bamboo Little Tower became the spot where the highest power resided in the Lin family. At this moment, in the Jade Bamboo Little Tower, Matriarch Lin was sitting on her chair. Two maidservants were standing beside her, massaging her shoulders. Her eyes were slightly closed, as if she was about to fall asleep. On the surface, Matriarch Lin looked like an ordinary old granny from a rich, noble family. It was as if because an old person was lacking in mental energy, they would doze off from time to time. Matriarch Lin. A woman dressed in a palatial gown entered and bowed to Matriarch Lin. She was Lin Shintong's grandaunt. Oh. Fingu. Matriarch Lin opened her eyes slightly. After glancing at her, Matriarch Lin nodded, motioning her to take a seat. Lin Shintong's grandaunt, Lin Fingu, had previously pushed for the Lin family and Shintu family clan marriage alliance. Although it was proven that the Shintu family clan had nefarious motives, people like Lin Fingu were not punished, they were only reprimanded. After all, there were too many people who sided with the Shintu family clan. Even the matriarch herself had ordered Lin Shintong to eat the relic at the final moment. For this, Matriarch Lin had self-reflected for 3 days, so as to remember this lesson. Matriarch, it's about that Yun Yin Tian. The woman in palatial gown said distastefully. She still had a lot of prejudice towards Yi Yun. Oh. Matriarch Lin frowned slightly. She had a hunch that Lin Fingu would not say anything good. What about him? It's this, I received some information regarding him. His true name is Yi Yun and he was born in the eastern regions. Furthermore, even in the backward eastern regions, he was an extremely normal civilian. His background could not be any humbler. And this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that he has an elder sister of a different surname. His sister is actually from the Desolate race. Furthermore, she is a very important figure in the Desolate race. After his sister's identity was exposed, this Yi Yun had actually desperately protected his sister to let her escape. He gave a desolate race spy a chance to launch a sneak attack. And because of this, he was imprisoned. However, it seems that this Yun has something to do with the shepherd boy. A few days later, the shepherd boy came personally, risking being besieged by humans. He saved Yun and took him away, and because of this he had paid quite a sizable price. Hence, I suspect that Yun is actually a desolate race spy. He has nefarious motives coming to our Lin family. Lin Fenggu gave a series of deductions, making Matriarch Lin's frown grow tighter. Where did you hear that from? That. Lin Fenggu hesitated before saying, I went to the dungeon to visit Shintu Nantian. It was Shintu Nantian who told me. Shintu Nantian. Matriarch Lin's eyebrows ticked upwards. She would not easily believe Shintu Nantian's words now. However, if he had lied, it would be easily exposed. After all, there was Yun's master, Su Jie, who could be questioned. Furthermore, sending someone to the eastern regions would allow them to easily find out. He has a desolate race sister. Matriarch Lin knew that this was likely true. As for Yun covering for the desolate race spy, Matriarch Lin believed this was likely Lin Fenggu or Shintu Nantian deliberately distorting the facts and making embellishments. Back then the person who imprisoned Yun was Shintu Nantian, right? Matriarch Lin understood the crux of the matter quickly. She knew that Shintu Nantian was in the eastern regions some time ago. Since he knew so much about Yun and in such clear detail, obviously Shintu Nantian was personally involved in it. I see. Shintu Nantian has a feud with Yun. No wonder he changed his name, and even wore a mask. Matriarch, you are indeed prophetic. That's how it was. Lin Fenggu quickly continued while flattering her. Hence, Yun is using our Lin family to get his revenge on Shintu Nantian in their personal feud. He isn't dedicated to the beneficial outcome of the Lin family. His motives are not pure. That evil little creature's ties with the desolate race isn't clear. He might even betray the human race in the future. If you were to ask me, we should quickly chase him out of the Lin family. If I had my say, crippling his cultivation would be best to prevent any repercussions. But then, I know Matriarch is kind. So although this evil little creature has ulterior motives, the Lin family is slightly indebted to him, so we can't do anything to him. However, if we were to chase him out of the Lin family, Shintu family clan will naturally deal with him. At that moment, we will not be criticized, and it would also prevent any repercussions. It's killing two birds with one stone. Besides, that evil little creature is very greedy. He took Shintu Nantian and the 1,000-hand granny's interspatial rings. He pocketed all the good items in them for himself. Amongst the items included Shintu Nantian's companion sword, and the ancient Desolate Heaven technique manual. If we are to chase him away, we need him to leave those behind. Actually, Shintu Nantian and the 1,000-hand granny were captured by our Lin family and their cultivation was restrained by our Lin family. The evil little creature had only provided a little information, so he has no right to get all those benefits. Matriarch, you should also note that the desolate race has always been eyeing the human race. The moment we go to war, who knows what kind of sabotage that evil little creature will commit. If at that moment, our Lin family is still retaining the evil little creature, we would become a sinner of the human race. Lin Fenggu tried her best to let her imagination run wild as she described various serious consequences to the matriarch. This caused the matriarch's expression to sullen slightly. Did Shintu Nantian tell you all of this? Lin Fenggu's heart sank as she did not know how to respond. From the way the matriarch's face had turned sullen, she did not know what the matriarch was thinking. No. Of course not. Lin Fenggu quickly shook her head. Although Shintu Nantian is of poor character, he was involved in it himself after all. What he said is worth exploring. But if you didn't hear them from what he said, then all of what you said was just your imagination. The matriarch's tone changed, causing Lin Fenggu to jump with fright. She hastily said, but what I said isn't impossible. The matriarch looked at Lin Fenggu with cold eyes. The bunch of you only gossip behind others' back, and speak badly of someone in front of me. Other than slandering talent, what else can you do? If the family only had people with such gossipy tongues, and no one with ability, the Lin family would have fallen in the hands of the Shintu family clan this time. In 10,000 years, our family could have been annihilated. Lin Fenggu's words seemed stuck. She opened her mouth, but she did not know what to say. The matriarch usually had extremely strong stances, so before she raged, no one would know what she was thinking. If one said words in a muddle-headed fashion that did not agree with her thoughts, the outcome would be terrible. Go face the wall and ponder over your misdeeds for 10 days. Matriarch Lin's voice was cold. Lin Fenggu wanted to say something, but eventually she swallowed her words, before obediently leaving. After Lin Fenggu left, the matriarch's expression still didn't look good. In her heart, she was naturally biased towards Yi Yun. In fact, she really liked Yi Yun. He was young and had excellent talent in the Desolate Heaven technique. His future prospects were immeasurable. His personal relations with Lin Xintong were also good. Such a person would provide a lot of help for Lin Xintong in the future. The matriarch did not mind that Yi Yun had a desolate race sister of a different surname. However, she was afraid that he really was involved with the desolate race. Then, it would be like a precious piece of jade that had a fatal flaw in it. Hence, even though the matriarch had reprimanded Lin Fenggu, she still needed to investigate the matter regarding Yi Yun. Lin Fenggu's words were not enough to make her gullibly believe in them, but she too would not gullibly believe Yi Yun just because of her personal preference. Send the order, get someone from the family rules hall to see me, the matriarch said to a maidservant. The Lin family's family rules hall was responsible in maintaining the family's domestic discipline. Most of the time, they would also be sent out to perform some missions. The matriarch had planned to let people from the family rules hall travel to the eastern regions to investigate what had happened. She wanted to know if Yi Yun's actions had been anything out of the ordinary. Yes. The maid-servant retreated. The matriarch could not feel relaxed. She did not mind Yi Yun taking Shintu Nanshan's and the 1,000-hand granny's items. She was afraid that because of his relationship with the desolate race, Yi Yun would favor the desolate race. That night, people from the Lin family's family rules hall set off. The matriarch did not summon Yi Yun to meet her, so Yi Yun carried on staying on the Jade Bamboo Peak. However, 3 days later, people from the Shintu family clan came. They were here to negotiate with the Lin family. They had also brought the information regarding the Great Empress Mystic Realm. Chapter 426, Negotiation. The atmosphere surrounding the arrival of the Shintu family clan was completely different from the previous one. For a large family clan of the Tian Yuan world to have its successor captured and nearly given an extreme punishment like dismembering the heart, it was a heavy smack in the Shintu family clan's face. What made it even more tragic was that they had no choice but to come. For this matter, the Shintu family clan was originally in the wrong. The Lin family had even purposely publicized this matter. With their nefarious schemes exposed, the Shintu family clan had lost face. Now, many Shintu family clan elders, the 1,000-hand granny, as well as the most important genius in the family, Shintu Nantian, were in the hands of the Lin family. With so many Tian Yuan family clans as witnesses, the Shintu family clan could only suffer in silence. These people had to bring Shintu Nantian back, or people in the Shintu family clan would find the act too heartless. They would also be criticized as being too ruthless and cold-blooded by the Tian Yuan world families. As for the revenge on the Lin family, that was a matter for the future. In the martial ground of the Lin family, people from the Lin family and the Shintu family clan were facing one another. Their gazes clashed, as if they were forming sparks. This martial ground was ordinarily filled with killing intent, and since the Lin family had lost all decorum with the Shintu family clan, Matriarch Lin had not prepared a guest hall for the Shintu family clan's arrival. She had arranged for the meeting to be held at a martial ground. The martial ground was about 1,000 feet long. In the middle, there were tables and chairs placed without much attention given to them. There sat elders from the two family clans. And surrounding the martial ground were young disciples and children of the Lin family and Shintu family clan. These young geniuses also stared at each other fiercely. To be chosen to appear to help the family's forceful stance in this negotiation, it was an honor for these juniors. So although they were high-spirited, these juniors gave envious and complex looks towards the sides of Matriarch Lin. There stood two people. One of them was the Lin family's proud daughter of heaven, Lin Xintong. The other was Yi Yun. They already knew that Yi Yun was Yun Yantian and that he had previously changed his identity for some reason. They stood around the martial ground, while Yi Yun was standing by Matriarch Lin's side. He was standing side by side with Lin Xintong, so this difference in status with them was evident. Lin Fenggu sat not far away. She looked at Yi Yun with an ashen expression. Her confinement had just ended, and the moment she came out for the negotiation, she saw Yi Yun standing beside the matriarch. She felt extremely depressed. Matriarch Lin clearly knew that Yi Yun had ties with the desolate race, yet she treated Yi Yun with such favor. The venue's atmosphere was heavy. It could be said that they were ready to jump at each other's throats any moment. Especially with the martial ground as the background, people began to suspect that both sides might come to blows at any time. Yi Yun could feel that in this negotiation, other than the elders who were responsible for the negotiation, he had subtly become the focus of attention. There was no concealing of the truth. The Shintu family clan already knew Yun Yantian was Yi Yun. This was the kid who had completely destroyed the Shintu family clan's plans, causing them to lose all face. The elders from the Shintu family clan could suppress their hostility, but many juniors gave murderous looks at Yi Yun without a second thought. That's him. A thin youth stared at Yi Yun like a venomous snake with the martial ground separating them. His skin was sallow, and he looked sickly. However, his drooping eyes were extremely sharp. His entire person was like a sinister condor. If an enemy who had impaired Shintu Nantian fell into my hands, then it would greatly enhance my prestige within the family. Unfortunately, he is too young, and focuses on the desolate heaven technique. His combat powers aren't worthy of mention. Defeating him is nothing to be proud of. The thin youth lightly used his thumb to rub his nose. This person was named Shintuya. He was a strong competitor to Shintu Nantian in the Shintu family clan. Although Shintu Nantian was pretty much designated to be the family's heir, unexpected events could always happen. Ya, who was younger than Shintu Nantian, had a frightening reputation. He was completely different from the usually mild-mannered Shintu Nantian. Shintuya was bloodthirsty. He began taking on family missions at the age of 12. His first mission was to wipe out a small bandit sect. No one out of the hundreds of people from the sect was spared. Later on, Ya embarked on the extreme path of murder. Those he killed could hardly keep their corpses intact. Yeah, don't be negligent. Hearing his words, an elder leading the Shintu family clan said softly. Shintuya stared at Yi Yun as he licked the corners of his mouth. I know. The matter ordered by the patriarch will definitely be done well by me. At this moment, Yi Yun, who was standing beside the matriarch, could clearly feel that a pair of eyes that resembled a serpent's was staring at him. Yi Yun tilted his head slightly and saw Shintuya. Shintuya's eyes squinted slightly as he grinned. This guy, Yi Yun frowned slightly. He sure received the attention of the Shintu family clan. Ignoring the hate Yi Yun had gathered for himself, just in putting down Shintu Nantian had caused many Shintu family clan disciples to be greatly interested in putting down Yi Yun. It was particularly even more so for those people who coveted Shintu Nantian's spot. At this moment, there was a sudden overwhelming pressure that befell the venue. No one knew where this pressure came from. They only felt their bodies turn heavily suddenly, as if a mountain was pressing down on them. This is People were alarmed. Many weaker juniors nearly fell to the ground. People looked up into the sky and saw a dark cloud slowly gathering. This overwhelming pressure seemed to come from the dark cloud. Shinto Patriarch. Matriarch Lin took in a deep breath. She knew that the Shinto Patriarch was here. Indeed, for such an important negotiation, how could he not come here to hold the ground? If he did not come, once the Lin family had any intention to kill, they could wipe out everyone who had come to negotiate. Then, the Shinto family clan would be severely weakened. As the dark cloud's overwhelming pressure was transmitted, a few strong Yuanqi beams surged up from a few Lin family main peaks to meet this overwhelming pressure. The two auras clashed in the sky. Immediately, a strong wind sent the clothes of everyone fluttering and their hair flying. These were the Lin family's grand elders. This meeting may be a negotiation in name, but it was actually a contest between the top figures of the Shinto family clan and the Lin family. The juniors present felt their hearts stir as they saw the effects of the wind and the clouds gathering together. With the Lin family's grand elders helping them withstand the pressure, they immediately felt much better. At this moment, Matriarch Lin said, "Where's the information for the great Empress Mystic Realm? Where's the people?" The Shinto family clan's elder in charge retaliated with a question. "Bring them." A Lin family elder clapped. Soon, a few Lin family guards brought the elders from the Shinto family clan over. In front of them were two people, Shinto Nantian and the Thousand-Hand Granny. They were in chains, their hair was unkempt and messy. Their faces were stained with blood. They looked no different from prisoners on death row. Upon seeing the Thousand-Hand Granny's and Shinto Nantian's appearances, the faces of people from the Shinto family clan twitched. The elder in charge's eyebrows jumped, as his expression turned cold. What is the meaning of this? The Thousand-Hand Granny and Shinto Nantian were in a very terrible state. It was equivalent to smacking their Shinto family clan's face. To imprison them, we naturally needed to restrain their cultivation. Locking them up was just to make them suffer a tiny bit. If that were not the case, others will think that my Lin family is a place that you can come and go as you please. Matriarch Lin said coldly. Whatever Yi Yun had done was tacitly permitted by Matriarch Lin. She was, after all, unwilling to release Shinto Nantian in the first place. At this moment, not even the Shinto family clan, even people from the Lin family felt their hearts jump. This Yi Yun sure was cruel. In the elder gallery, Su Jie's mouth could not help but twitch. He choked back his laughter as he felt extremely good seeing Shinto Nantian and that old hag in such a state. This cheap disciple of his sure was good at letting people suffer. Well done. He had never liked the Thousand-Hand Granny due to a myriad of reasons. Suffer a tiny bit? The Shinto family clan's elder in charge's face turned dark. He took a step to stand before the Thousand-Hand Granny and Shinto Nantian. As fast as lightning, he grabbed their wrists. Oh? The elder carefully probed. The Thousand-Hand Granny and Shinto Nantian were both injured. Their meridians were damaged. These injuries were not light, but if they used good medicine, these were not irreparable injuries. However, this was clearly not just suffering a tiny bit as Matriarch Lin described. Did they do anything to you? The elder asked. Shinto Nantian and the Thousand-Hand Granny looked each other in the eye. Both of them hated Yi Yun to the bone. Shinto Nantian gritted his teeth. A man who loses position and influence may be subjected to much indignity. That Yi Yun is a despicable person, however, he did not dare do anything to us. We only suffered some physical pain and there is no damage to our core. As Shinto Nantian said this, he felt his anger rising. He had been forced to eat the 7 noxious divining pill, yet he can only say that he had suffered some physical pain. It was such a humiliation. This feud was truly irreconcilable. Chapter 427, Murderous Intent and Will. Just some physical pain. The elder in charge looked deeply at Shinto Nantian, Niantian. your spirit might have been too abundant. So with this setback, it might not be a bad thing for you. The elder in charge could only give some consolation. Shintunantian clenched his fists tightly, with his nails nearly piercing his flesh. However, he could only say, Nantian understands. He did not have any way of telling the elder in charge of the experiences he had in the dungeon. If other people knew, other than letting him lose face, there were no other benefits. Furthermore, it would show the people who were eyeing his status that his meridians were damaged. By knowing that his future achievements would be affected, their ambitions would increase as a result. This humbling feeling made Shintunanshan's intestines form knots. He could only suffer in silence. Since you have seen them, where is the information of the great Empress Mystic Realm? Matriarch Lin said coldly. At the same time, a Lin family elder beside her took a soul contract out. This soul contract had even more complicated engraved runes. The quality was even higher. It was used to bind the Shinto family clan so as to ensure that the Shinto family clan would give them a jade scroll with genuine contents. It also bound the Lin family, ensuring that Shintunanshan's and the thousand-hand granny's lives weren't in peril. The Shinto family clan's elder in charge coldly snorted. He used a dagger to slit his finger, and with a flick of his finger, a drop of blood flew onto the soul contract. For you. Following that, a jade scroll flew out from the elder in charge's hands. This jade scroll flew very fast, and it was almost like a beam of white lightning. It contained the Shinto family clan's elder in charge Yuan Qi. The explosive sound it made while flying was shockingly powerful. There was no doubt that just this jade scroll could threaten any ordinary sage's life. This was a contest between the Shinto family clan and the Lin family's upper echelons. Even a negotiation was extremely tense. Matriarch Lin stretched her hand out and grabbed it. A soft white glow wrapped around her old hands as she easily clasped the jade scroll. After confirming the contents of the jade scroll, Matriarch Lin nodded. Looking at the soul contract had begun burning by itself. Soon, it turned into a ball of flames. One could see the blood-colored ghost head burning as it slowly died and disappeared. Once the contract was fulfilled, the soul contract would destroy itself. Once the ghost head was destroyed, the curse would naturally be lifted. This proved that there were no problems with the contents of the jade scroll. Since the negotiation was completed, Matriarch Lin said bluntly, "Send them off." She did not wish for the people from the Shinto family clan to stay in the Lin family area for a second longer. There will be retribution. Today, you might have gotten the upper hand, but our Shinto family clan will take it back in the future. As a great elder said that, he turned and walked towards their airship. Behind him, the crowd of Shinto family clan family members began to depart. In the clouds, the immense pressure that flooded the venue also slowly faded. And at the moment the pressure disappeared, Yun, who was standing next to Matriarch Lin, suddenly felt a deadly chill flash through his heart. A massive amount of killing intent had swept across him that instant. Ah! Yun's face went pale as he held his breath. He knew clearly that in the dark clouds far into the distance, there was a pair of cold, ruthless eyes that had glanced deeply at him. This glance had caused his limbs to feel numb and cold. Shinto Patriarch. This was an old guy who even the shepherd boy, back in his heyday, coupled with the primordial divine lion, could not completely beat. And now, he had specifically glanced at him. Just that glance was penetrating into the heart. It was as if just before the glance, he had returned to the time when he was still a mortal. It was like he was standing naked in a snowy environment. The biting chill that was impossible to defend against made people flustered. Yun. Matriarch Lin, who was standing guard beside Yun, quickly put her hand out as she supported Yun's heart from the back. A stream of warm Yuan Qi was injected into Yun's body. With that, Yun's complexion turned better. "Are you all right?" Matriarch Lin asked with concern. "I'm fine. Thank you, Matriarch." Yun shook his head. A glance from the Shinto patriarch was enough to cause his forehead to release micro beads of sweat. Even his soul felt extremely tense, and there was a tingling pain. So this was the power of the top figure in the Tian Yuan world. That old monster. To actually do that to a junior. Matriarch Lin looked hatefully at the dark cloud that was fading into the distance. The final glance the Shinto patriarch had given contained his will. Although he could not kill Yi Yun here, that glance was enough to send a murderous warning. To make the Shinto patriarch behave like that clearly meant that the Shinto patriarch was really angry about this matter. The Lin family and the Shinto family clan were large family clans in the Tian Yuan world. If both sides really fought without considering anything else, they would both end up suffering. No one wished to see such an outcome. Under the circumstances, the Shinto patriarch had to endure this. The Shinto patriarch was forced to back down. But for a person like him to back down, that was a great price in itself. Yi Yun, you must be careful. Because you offended the Shinto family clan, you must be careful when you tour the Tian Yuan world. However, if you are in the Lin family, it is absolutely safe. My Lin family will protect you well. Matriarch Lin said to Yi Yun. At that moment, many of the Lin family's elders had left with their disciples. There were only a few people that included Lin Xintong and Yi Yun left beside Matriarch Lin. Yi Yun heartfeltly said, "Thank you, Matriarch. This is to be expected. The reason why you offended the Shinto family clan is largely because of my Lin family. If it was not for you, I would have suffered from being dim-sighted from my old age. I nearly fell for their schemes. For the great Empress relic to turn the red-eyed wolf into bones, it has the side effect of affecting one's lifespan. If I were to agree to the Shinto family clan's proposal, I would have harmed Xintong, and I would also have harmed the Lin family. Yi Yun, you could be said to be our Lin family's benefactor." Originally, the marriage alliance was beneficial to both the Lin family and the Shinto family clan. However, with the relic being flawed, only the Shinto family clan would gain the benefits, while the Lin family would have mistakenly fell for the trap. They would have ruined their family's heir, and their resulting future could be predicted. Matriarch, you make it sound too serious. This junior is not worthy of that. Yi Yun clasped his fists and said humbly. The matriarch smiled. She was very satisfied with Yi Yun's attitude of not being arrogant, despite having accomplishing something. Yi Yun, I heard that you have not decided on your marriage matters. If you do want to marry, you can choose any girl in the Lin family that you like. When the matriarch said this, Yi Yun felt speechless. He awkwardly touched his cheek and said, "This junior is still young, so this is not an urgent matter." Clearly, the matriarch still wanted Yi Yun to have his roots in the Lin family. Not far away, Lin Xintong's grandaunt felt unhappy hearing this. "Matriarch, how can you?" She was worried about the matter regarding Yi Yun and the desolate race. How could the matriarch let a person whose identity was unknown, and his motives impure, take root in the Lin family? Then, wasn't what she said in the past for nothing? Oh? The matriarch's eyebrows knitted as she gave Lin Fenggu a staring glance. Lin Fenggu suddenly stopped speaking. Although she extremely disliked Yi Yun, she did not dare to go against the matriarch's wishes. The matriarch turned back towards Yi Yun and her expression changed into a pleasant smile. "You aren't young anymore. Many mortals get married when they were 15 years old. For warriors, they may get married later, but it is also alright to have an early engagement. On the road of martial arts, there are some cultivation techniques that allow for cultivation intercourse, which will help give fast improvements in cultivation. My Lin family also has such cultivation techniques. You can choose any of them as you wish. Of course, you can also choose who will be your companion. As long as you choose one, I will personally help you in the matchmaking process." There were not many people around, so the matriarch said all that without any inhibitions. This made Lin Xintong, who was standing beside her, blush slightly. She was still pure, so hearing the matriarch say things like this openly made her unsure on what her reaction should be. the matriarch really is thinking seriously about Yun's marriage. Lin Xintong muttered to herself. For the matriarch to be a matchmaker herself, no junior in the Lin family could enjoy such a treatment. And if the matriarch had any intention for a marriage to happen, how could it not succeed? Besides, in the family, there would be no girl who would dislike Yun. When this thought appeared in her mind, Lin Xintong secretly glanced at Yun. Now, Yun had grown up into a bright young teenager. His childish looks no longer existed, and he looked more wise and he had a restrained air to him. Furthermore, with his outstanding talent and bright future, which girl wouldn't feel tempted? Thinking about the celebration party a month ago, the young girls that had surrounded Yun were like fluttering birds. These girls were obviously not following the instructions of the elders to approach Yun, but they wanted to get to know Yun well themselves. With this thought, the corners of Lin Xintong's mouth suffused a faint smile. Back then, when she met Yun in the cloud wilderness, how would she have known that he would become such an admirable youth? Yun, think about it. If you wish, you can also go into our Lin family's cultivation technique library and choose a cultivation technique you want. The people from the Family Rules Hall, who were sent out by the matriarch, had investigated everything that happened to Yun in the Chu royal residence a few months ago at the fastest speed possible. After Matriarch Lin had heard it, she was already sure that Yun was risking his life to stop Shintu Nantian because of his relationship with his sister. Not only did this not decrease Matriarch Lin's impression of Yun, it in fact made Matriarch Lin think that Yun was a person who set high values on relationships. Such a person was even more worthy of being trusted. On the contrary, if he ignored his sister's life and assumed a stance of placing righteousness before family to appear dignified, such a person needed to be watched out for. This was because this meant that they would do anything to reach their goals. Yun was a genius that was worthy of being trusted and nurtured. Hence, Matriarch Lin decided to hold on to Yun's heart. If she could get Yun to find a girl that he liked in the Lin family, it would be even better. The girl will slowly take up a spot in Yun's heart. As such, there would be no fear in Yun leaning towards the desolate race. Chapter 428, Pulling Off Its Veil. Under the companionship of Yun and Lin Xintong, Matriarch Lin headed to the Jade Bamboo Peak. When they stepped into the airship, the matriarch suddenly stopped and handed the Great Empress Mystic Realm's Jade Scroll to Lin Xintong. Xintong, take a look. This sentence made many people pause in their thoughts as they too stopped in their footsteps. Everyone looked towards Lin Xintong. Great Empress Mystic Realm. The trade between the Lin family and the Shintu family clan was not only limited to the Great Empress Mystic Realm's location. It also included the experience the Shintu family clan gained within the Great Empress Mystic Realm. It gave a general outline of what the Great Empress Mystic Realm had as well as the potential opportunities and risks. Only the matriarch had seen the Jade Scroll. As for what it was inside and whether it had something that could cure Lin Xintong of her naturally terminated meridians, was still a mystery. If even after they had worked so hard and given it so much thought, the Great Empress Mystic Realm proved to be of no value to Lin Xintong, then it would be meaningless. Lin Xintong took the Jade Scroll as she gently touched the corners of the Jade Scroll's smooth edges. Her expression remained calm. Only her long eyelashes trembled slightly as she read. What was written in the Jade Scroll? Could it provide an opportunity to change her own destiny? With her perception sinking into the Jade Scroll, Lin Xintong read the contents within. She remained silent for a long while as everyone around waited as they observed Lin Xintong's expression. Old man Su Jie's hands were clasped together. He was clearly very nervous and looking forward to it. There was no doubt that whatever easily obtained or valuable within the Great Empress Mystic Realm had already been taken away by the Shintu family clan. What remained would only be extremely dangerous things that might not even be obtainable. This was as Shintu Nantian had said, the Shintu family clan had only explored a tiny portion of the Great Empress Mystic Realm. There were even more opportunities that the Shintu family clan could only lament at after seeing its inaccessibility. After Lin Shintong finished reading it, she did not say anything. She returned the jade scroll to the matriarch. Neither excitement nor frustration could be seen from her face. "Let me see." Su Jie could not bear it further. Although Su Jie was an outsider, the matriarch absolutely trusted him, so she naturally did not mind letting him see the contents of the jade scroll. After Su Jie finished reading, his expression turned odd. Yi Yun, who was watching by the side, was also curious. What was in the jade scroll? The matriarch could tell what was on Yi Yun's mind. She handed the jade scroll to Yi Yun. "You take a look too." "Me?" Yi Yun was slightly stunned. He never expected that the matriarch would specially give a junior like him to read the jade scroll firsthand. Beside Yi Yun, Lin Fenggu was angered. She had not even seen it as an elder, yet Yi Yun got it before her. Could her position in the matriarch's heart be less than this kid Yi Yun? To be able to obtain this jade scroll was all thanks to you. Although there is hope, this hope is quite slim. The matriarch shook her head gently. After Yi Yun received the jade scroll, he sank his perception into it. As such, this mystical land that had been left behind a long time ago finally pulled off its veil in front of Yi Yun. The first thing Yi Yun saw was the location of the Great Empress Mystic Realm, as that was the most critical information. Upon seeing it, Yi Yun gasped. The Great Empress Mystic Realm was located near to the God Burial Abyss. When Yi Yun first arrived at the Tianyuan world, he had heard from Su Jie that the surroundings of the Tianyuan world was blocked off by the untraversable sea. This untraversable sea was infinitely vast, and its heaven-earth yuan-chi was sparse. It was dead silent and no one had managed to cross it. And below the Tianyuan world, deep in the untraversable sea, there was a huge black whirlpool named the God Burial Abyss. This God Burial Abyss had an incomparable terrifying suction force. Once someone was sucked into it, they would fall deep into the endless abyss, with no way of returning. It was said even immortal gods could not return. Hence, it was called the God Burial Abyss. This was the most terrifying place in the Tianyuan world. Even a mighty figure like the Shintu Patriarch did not dare to enter. Now, only peerless figures would consider entering the God Burial Abyss when the end of their lifespans was getting close. Some wanted to see with their own eyes what was inside God Burial Abyss. Others held out for the 1 in a trillion chance for an opportunity within God Burial Abyss that could extend what was their tiny amount of lifespan left. The Great Empress Mystic Realm was not inside the God Burial Abyss. Because if that was the case, then no one could enter it. It was located near to the humongous whirlpool in the God Burial Abyss. There was still quite a distance, but even so, the Mystic Realm's main body was still affected by the God Burial Abyss's terrifying suction force. This shocked Yi Yun. One had to know that the spatial dimension around the God Burial Abyss was extremely unstable. For such a large mystic realm to exist under the terrifying suction force and the spatial warping for such a long time, what sort of power was needed to make this a reality? There was no doubt that the Great Empress Mystic Realm was indeed left behind by the ancient peerless Great Empress herself. It was not necessarily the Great Empress's grave, but a heritage ground left behind by the Great Empress. In the history of martial arts, peerless Great Empyrean ranked figures like the ancient Great Empress was extremely few in number. Historical records did not specifically indicate how long their lifespans were. There was just a vague estimation. They might have existed in this world for hundreds of thousands of years, and might have died or broken through into the void, leaving the world of Tianyuan. In history, there had never been two peerless great emperors that existed in the same era. Hence, a peerless great emperor was destined to solitude and loneliness. In the eyes of these peerless figures, the geniuses of their era were not considered geniuses. Hence, many peerless great emperors would never be able to have a true disciple which could inherit their mantle. It was not that they did not wish to take in disciples, it was because they could not find one. The elites in the same era could not catch their eye. As the saying goes about rather going without than be contented with anything less than satisfactory. If they had really taken in a personal disciple who was unable to continue their brilliance and was unable to push the inheritance they created to its peak, then they would rather not take in a disciple. But a warrior always tended to want the laws and heritage they created in their lives to carry on. The lifespan of people were limited. Mortals wished to have children so as to continue their bloodline after they died. It was the same with warriors. If their heritage could continue, then it was like them living on. If they could not find a suitable successor in their living years, then these peerless great emperors would establish lands with their heritage. Inside these lands, there were all sorts of opportunities. Those who were destined could obtain the complete heritage they left behind. Many mighty figures even began forecasting the future, and used the final years of their life to search for the possible time and location of their future heir's appearance in the rivers of fate. And they would use this information to leave behind a heritage mystic realm. The value of the peerless great empress's heritage was self-evident. Furthermore, there might even be treasures left behind by the great empress. Once the heritage and treasures appeared, it was sufficient cause for the large families of the Tian Yuan world to go mad. However, the Shintu family clan had handed over the location of the great empress mystic realm to the Lin family. The reason behind this was because the Shintu family clan could not enter the core of the mystic realm no matter what methods they had used. They naturally had no fate with the heritage and the treasures. As for the exterior perimeter's opportunities, the Shintu family clan had already taken whatever they could take. Hence, the jade scroll in Yi Yun's hands may be valuable, but the premise was that the Lin family had to be able to take the items out from the great empress mystic realm. This was too difficult. Since the great empress mystic realm was a land of inheritance, then it naturally was the stage for young people. As a land of inheritance, the main reason for its existence was to pick a successor. The ancient great empress would not choose an old man as her successor. According to the records in the Jade Scroll, there would be many channels to choose from upon entering the great empress mystic realm. These channels would screen one's bone age. The difference in bone age would result in different channels. The great empress mystic realm also had treasures which was left behind by the ancient great empress as gifts for the world. These treasures did not have any age restrictions. People like Su Jia could also compete for them. These were all channels that had no bone age restriction. As for the remaining core channels, there would be bone age restrictions. There was no doubt the treasures that was up for grabs were trivial. The really precious treasure was the great empress inheritance that only juniors could obtain. To leave behind the best things for one's selected heir was human nature. Have you finished reading it? That's about it. Everyone present had taken a look at the contents of the Jade Scroll before it finally returned to Matriarch Lin's hands. At this moment, Matriarch Lin's expression did not look relaxed. The bunch of us old people can also enter this great empress mystic realm, but we would not have any fate with the core land of inheritance. That is to say, this exploration of the great empress mystic realm will depend on our family's juniors. Actually, the number of people entering the mystic realm is not limited. However, the Jade Scroll given to us by the Shintu family clan has said that the entrance to the great empress mystic realm is near to the god burial abyss. There, the suction strength is extremely terrifying. An ordinary junior has no hopes of nearing it, or their bodies would be torn to pieces. When the matriarch said this, her expression turned odd. This did not make sense. Since the ancient great empress had established this land of inheritance, then the main goal was to select an heir. An heir that could really catch a ride would not be too old. The person wouldn't have a very high cultivation level, but would have extremely high talent. However, with the mystic realm's entrance being so dangerous, how could young people with lacking cultivation levels enter with their own strength? This made the matriarch suspect that when the ancient great empress established the inheritance mystic realm, the god burial abyss was not in such a state. There might have been some changes later on that resulted in the current situation. Or maybe, with the drifting of spatial dimensions, the entrance of the great empress mystic realm had slowly moved to the entrance of the god burial abyss over a long period of time. This also caused the Great Empress Mystic Realm that was supposed to be presented to everyone in the world to become extremely secretive and difficult to discover. There was no meaning in trying to figure out the reason. What was important was that due to the location of the Great Empress Mystic Realm being near the God Burial Abyss, there was a limited number of people allowed to enter. This was because the juniors of the Lin family could not use their own strength to approach the God Burial Abyss. They needed a mighty figure of the Lin family to bring them in. To bring a weak live person that close to the God Burial Abyss without harm was easier said than done. The Lin family did not have many people with such abilities. Tonight, we will discuss in detail the candidates who will enter the Great Empress Mystic Realm. Chapter 429, Fixing the Spots. The Great Empress Mystic Realm was not only a great opportunity, it also concerned the fate of Lin Xintong. The current situation of the Shintu family clan exploring the Great Empress Mystic Realm was that the elder generation was not able to explore the deepest parts of the Mystic Realm, while the younger generation did not manage to enter the Mystic Realm's core. Under these circumstances, the Lin family was unsure of what else could be in the Great Empress Mystic Realm. And the method to cure Lin Xintong of her terminated meridians may seem very promising, but it would be extremely difficult to obtain. The Lin family conceded that their strength was not much stronger than the Shintu family clan. The Lin family would also face the same difficulty exploring the places that the Shintu family clan was unable to explore. Hence, the people who were to be chosen had to be very carefully selected by the Lin family. Sending everyone out was not realistic. The Lin family had 3 grand elders. The strongest one of them had to remain in the family to hold the ground, so as to prevent the Shintu family clan from taking advantage of this opportunity to destroy the Lin family's territory. With the Shintu patriarch's strength, he would just need 2 hours to crack open the Lin family's mountain protective array. He could then lead the Shintu family clan elites and annihilate the Lin family. For a large family clan like the Lin family, they would not let the grand elders that held the ground leave under normal circumstances as it was too dangerous. As such, the Lin family only had 2 grand elders for this expedition. The 2 of them could jointly escort the younger generation into the Mystic Realm without a problem. According to the records in Shintu Nanshan's Jade Scroll, the Great Empress Mystic Realm was fraught with dangers. The channels that the younger generation faced were gentler. Typically, there would not be too many injuries or deaths. In contrast, the older generation would face dangers that could kill at any moment. They might not even obtain a single opportunity there and end up dying. I want to go in. In the Lin family's internal meeting, Su Jie was the first to speak. This Great Empress Mystic Realm had been searched over once by the Shintu family clan, so all the easily obtainable opportunities were already gone. So it was not necessarily a good thing for the older generation to enter it. Su Jie was worried over Lin Xintong's naturally terminated meridians, which was why he personally wanted to explore the Mystic Realm. Matriarch Lin nodded. Elder Su, there is no rush to decide the spots for the older generation. Now, we need to look at the spots for the younger generation. They are the most important ones. Compared to the older generation, the younger generation entering the Great Empress Mystic Realm was definitely a great assignment. The dangers they would face would be much lower compared to that of the elders. Even if they couldn't find any opportunities, it would still be a valuable chance to train. By broadening their horizons by seeing the arrays and heritage left behind from ancient times, they could gain a lot and break through bottlenecks. The matriarch spoke. The entrance to the Great Empress Mystic Realm is in a spatial crack near the God Burial Abyss whirlpool. If we want to enter, we will need to choose a period when the whirlpool's tidal power is at its weakest. If not, even our family's grand elders will find it difficult to withstand the God Burial Abyss' terrifying suction power and be able to bring our juniors in or open the door to the Mystic Realm. It is very difficult to determine when it will happen. It might be in a few months, and it might even be 1 or 2 years from now. For this, we will need to make a lot of preparations. And the spots to enter the Mystic Realm are currently fixed at 10. These 10 people must be the elites of our Lin family's younger generation. Your mission is extremely critical, as the greatest opportunities within the Great Empress Mystic Realm will be in the areas that you will be exploring. As Matriarch Lin spoke, she looked at the juniors sitting behind the many elders. This family meeting also had juniors participating. And those juniors that were qualified to sit here were only about 20-odd in numbers. They were the proud children of heaven amongst the Lin family's younger generation. Usually, they would enjoy the best resources of the Lin family. Now, the 10 people would clearly be chosen amongst them. These juniors all turned nervous. Amongst the 20-odd people, other than Lin Xintong, the differences between them were not too great. Those who were hovering around the passing mark held their breaths as they waited for the choice that would determine their fate. Who amongst these juniors did not wish to see the heritage left behind by the ancient Great Empress? Maybe they would even be selected through great luck? Even if they were not chosen, just getting some benefit would be quite something. The chances of the older generation gaining some opportunity to make a breakthrough were low, but it was different for the younger generation. They were still young, so they had plenty of opportunities and ambition. For this matter, I think we can determine 6 people immediately. A black-robed, middle-aged man beside the matriarch said slowly: Lin Xintong, Lin Qingyun, Lin Lang, Lin Xiaodai, Lin Fengyue, and Li Daoxian. The names the middle-aged man named were indisputable elites in the Lin family's younger generation. Amongst them, Li Daoxian was a disciple who did not share the same family name. His father's surname was Li, and he had married a woman from the Lin family. As his father's strength was extraordinary, the Lin family would not let Li Daoxian change his surname to Lin. For him to be considered one of the best 6 geniuses in the Lin family's younger generation despite his different surname, it was obvious how strong Li Daoxian was. Yi Yun's gaze swept the 6 people. Other than Lin Xintong, he did not know any of them, nor had he ever seen them before. In the few months Yi Yun was in the Lin family, the elites he had seen were only the geniuses in the Desolate Heaven technique. Desolate Heaven technique apprentices who would mainly focus on the Desolate Heaven techniques. Their achievements in martial arts would no doubt be affected by that focus. They could not compare to the geniuses who specialized in martial arts like Lin Qingyun or Lin Lang. Since the Great Empress Mystic Realm was to choose an heir to the ancient Great Empress heritage, it was natural to look at one's martial art accomplishments. It was useless just being good at the Desolate Heaven technique. In fact, although the Shintu family clan had obtained a lot of ancient Desolate Heaven technique recipes in the Great Empress Mystic Realm, these were not left behind by the ancient Great Empress, they were left behind by an ancient Desolate Heaven master who admired the Great Empress. The ancient Great Empress undoubtedly focused on martial arts, and she was a woman who had gone to the extreme on the martial path. I have no objections, the matriarch said lightly. These 6 people were indeed outstanding. The middle-aged man added on, there are still 4 more places. Everyone can try nominating. Firstly, we need to see their talent. Secondly, we need to see their cultivation level. The higher the cultivation level, the more pressure they can handle, making it easier to bring them into the Great Empress Mystic Realm. It will also alleviate some pressure for the family's elders. Just now, amongst the 6 people that has been decided, Xiaodai and Yefeng are relatively younger. Bringing them along will require quite a lot of energy. We can only choose one more person whose cultivation level is below the late stages of the Yuan Foundation realm. There cannot be any more. The middle-aged man had seen the Shintu family clan's Jade Scroll, and had assessed the situation of the God Burial Abyss. In his opinion, 2 of the Lin family's grand elders could each bring an older junior and a junior whose cultivation level was below the late stages of the Yuan Foundation realm. Other than that, there was also Matriarch Lin. She had the ability to bring one junior whose cultivation level was below the late stages of the Yuan Foundation realm. In total, there were 3 people. This was the maximum they could do in order to ensure safety. Matriarch, what do you think? Who will you choose? The middle-aged man asked. The moment he said that, all the juniors present, who were below the late stages of the Yuan Foundation realm, immediately looked nervous as they held their breaths. Those older disciples still had hope. As 16 to 17-year-olds, they only had one spot. Everyone wished they would be the one selected. 16 to 17 years old was the crucial age for a warrior's growth. To enter the ancient mystic realm at this time for training experience would give a lot of benefits. Who could know when the tidal flows of the god burial abyss would lessen in strength? At this moment, Lin Xintong's grandaunt, with a smile, said, "In my opinion, the spot for someone below the late stages of the Yuan Foundation realm would be suitable for Yuer. Yuer's strength can be said to be at the top amongst the juniors in the late stages of the Yuan Foundation realm. I think that no one will have any objections to this, right?" As Lin Fenggu said this, her gaze swept across the elders present with a smile. These elders did not make known their positions. As a result, Lin Fenggu felt very pleased. Subconsciously, Lin Fenggu glanced at Yi Yun. Although Lin Fenggu disliked Yi Yun, she had to admit that Yi Yun's talent in the Desolate Heaven technique was extraordinary. To compare her nephew's Desolate Heaven technique to Yi Yun would be a terrible sight. Thankfully, this great Empress mystic realm was not dependent on one's Desolate Heaven technique talent. What was considered was one's martial arts talent. This was a weakness of Desolate Heaven technique apprentices. Lin Yu was one of Lin Fenggu's grandnephews. Lin Fenggu was very pleased with him, so she naturally wanted her own progeny to obtain this opportunity. Upon hearing Lin Fenggu's words, those juniors who were nervous and highly anticipant of the outcome felt their hearts skip a beat. Lin Fenggu had a certain position in the family, and with Lin Yu's exceptional abilities, these juniors felt that they had no hope. They were inferior, be it strength or background, so how were they to compete? And amongst these juniors, a blue-shirted youth looked straight ahead. He did not look around as his expression was very calm. Sitting at his spot, the corners of his mouth could not help but suffuse a smile. He was Lin Yu. Seeing Lin Fenggu advocating him, he was naturally happy. "Matriarch, what do you think? This matter should be fixed, right? If Yuer is not suitable, then no one else is suitable." Yuer. Lin Fenggu signaled Lin Yu, indicating for him to quickly stand up to accept it and give his thanks. Lin Yu suppressed the excitement in his heart as he calmly stood up. Clasping his hands, he tried to calm his voice, "Matriarch." Just as he opened his mouth, Matriarch Lin said lightly, "I already have someone in mind for this spot." The matriarch's words were like a sudden bolt from the clear skies. Lin Yu, who was smiling, suddenly froze. His expression was frozen onto his face. Lin Fenggu's smile also stagnated as her expression turned ugly. After dazing for a while, she said, "Who does the matriarch have in mind?" "If it is another good talent, I naturally have nothing more to say." At this moment, Matriarch Lin turned towards Yi Yun. "Yi Yun, although the great Empress mystic realm is an inheritance land for martial arts, I find your foundation very solid. You must have been having a secondary focus in martial arts while concentrating on the Desolate Heaven technique. Do you want to go in and take a look?" The matriarch's tone was friendly. Standing beside the matriarch, Lin Fenggu's facial muscles twitched. Her face seemed to turn livid. She had stood up to say something that had been rejected by the matriarch. And in a blink of an eye, the matriarch had used such a negotiative tone to ask if Yi Yun wished to enter. This feeling was like she had been smacked twice in the face in public. She was dumbfounded. Yi Yun, it was Yi Yun again. The matriarch actually chose Yi Yun to go to a martial arts mystic realm, something that had nothing to do with the Desolate Heaven technique. Chapter 430, The Matriarch's Decisiveness. At this moment, Lin Fenggu was feeling pangs of anger burning in her heart. If it was a Desolate Heaven technique mystic realm, she would not have anything to say about the matriarch choosing Yi Yun. However, this was a martial mystic realm, so on the basis of reason, the spot should have been given to Lin Yu. Matriarch. Lin Fenggu gritted her teeth, however, the matriarch's was expressionless. She did not care about Fenggu as she had obviously already decided this matter. Lin Fenggu could only put her hopes on Yi Yun. To her, Yi Yun was a desolate heaven master, so it would be meaningless for him to search for martial arts inheritances. Yi Yun, think over the matter. The great Empress Mystic Realm is useless to you. Even martial arts geniuses might not obtain any benefits by entering there, what more you? Besides, the Mystic Realm is fraught with danger. You should just stay in the family and train your desolate heaven technique, then your future accomplishments will be inconceivable. If you were to risk it by going to the great Empress Mystic Realm, and meet some unfortunate circumstances, then it might be too late to be sorry. If you do not go, I can pass you some desolate heaven technique manuals. I can also prepare desolate heaven technique disc arrays for you. Lin Fenggu had used a Yuan Qi transmission to speak to Yi Yun. Yi Yun smiled. Desolate heaven technique manuals? Giving him desolate heaven technique disc arrays? For an old woman like Lin Fenggu, her items might not even make Yi Yun covet them. Besides, even if she really did have good items, it was unlikely that she would give them to him. Yi Yun knew that if he were to reject the offer at this family meeting, Lin Fenggu would probably just use some low-grade items to brush him off, treating him as some bumpkin. Yi Yun slowly stood up and bowed at the matriarch. This junior thanks the matriarch for her care and concern. This junior is indeed interested in the great Empress Mystic Realm and hopes to explore it. Yi Yun's words were slow and gently, but when they entered the ears of Lin Yu and Lin Fenggu, it made their expressions turn extremely ugly. All right. The matriarch gave him a benevolent smile. Then that spot will be reserved for Yi Yun. This opportunity in the great Empress Mystic Realm is originally all thanks to Yi Yun, so it is reasonable to leave one spot for him. The matriarch was in charge of the internal affairs of the Lin family, so her words were final. She was not negotiating with the other elders in the family, but informing them. Immediately, the elders present had all sorts of different expressions. Many of them had a more suitable person in mind for the spot. Everyone wanted to advocate their direct descendants, but with Yi Yun taking one of the spots, it undoubtedly left one spot less for the rest. Everyone knew that Yi Yun had made a great meritorious service for the family at the relic trial, so giving him one of the spots as an award was reasonable. The point was that these people felt that it was a waste to give the spot to Yi Yun. Matriarch Lin Fenggu could not resist. I know that Yi Yun managed to prevent a disaster for our Lin family at the relic trial, but I will not agree that the opportunity of entering the great Empress Mystic Realm is thanks to Yi Yun. The Lin family was the one who captured Shen Tu Nantian and the Thousand Hand Granny. The people who negotiated with the Shen Tu family clan was also our Lin family. Even if Yi Yun managed to see through Shen Tu Nantian's malicious schemes as a junior, what could he have done with his strength? If not for our Lin family's strength, he would already have been killed by the Shen Tu family clan. Only with power do you have the capital to be unyielding. It is our Lin family obtaining the location of the great Empress Mystic Realm at the cost of offending the Shen Tu family clan. This has nothing to do with Yi Yun. Lin Fenggu's words were agitated, but the reasoning within them were agreed upon by the other elders of the Lin family. However, the matriarch's expression turned cold upon hearing this. She only looked at Lin Fenggu with a cold stare. Those elders who were familiar with the matriarch's personality knew that by giving off that gaze, it meant that she was extremely displeased with Lin Fenggu. Lin Fenggu's voice cut off, no longer daring to make a sound. Against the matriarch, a figure who had helmed the Lin family for so many years, she was extremely afraid. If the Lin family only is people like you, treating enemies as family, backstabbing talented people, and only trying to swallow any interests you see into your own pockets, then the Lin family would probably not be that far off from destruction. Impotence, jealousy, greed, selfishness, unable to distinguish between right and wrong, short-sighted. What use is there for the family to keep a person like you? When the matriarch said this, it was like having a sharp knife stabbing into Lin Fenggu's heart. Lin Fenggu was stunned, as her ears buzzed. She felt like all the blood in her body had surged to her face. She had been completely refuted by the Lin family's decision-maker in the Lin family's elders' meeting. As for what the matriarch said, What use is there for the family to keep a person like you? Lin Fingu's old face flushed and this blood-red color spread to her neck. She stood there without speaking a word. Behind Lin Fingu, Lin Yu was also standing stiffly at his seat. From the moment he stood up, he had not even finished speaking a sentence, but left hanging there. It was extremely embarrassing. Hearing the matriarch decide on the matter, he felt like his entire self had been emptied. He felt that the gaze from the surrounding juniors had changed from envy and jealousy to sympathy. After all, Yi Yun had the matriarch backing him. He may have strong backing, but it was not stronger than Yi Yun's. I cannot accept it. Lin Yu clenched his fists tightly as his body began to lightly tremble. He did not dare to shout this out and had only transmitted his voice to Lin Fingu. I want to fight Yi Yun. In terms of martial ability, what is he? I can completely destroy him without a weapon. Lin Yu's Yuan Qi transmission was full of irreconciliation. However, Lin Fingu only shook her head. So what if you can win against him? Do you think the matriarch does not know that your martial ability far exceeds that of Yi Yun's? However, she will not let you go, as this is a reward for Yi Yun. With Lin Fingu saying this, Lin Yu felt like a deflated ball. Yes, even if he did defeat Yi Yun in a showdown, so what? So what if he had mercilessly beat down Yi Yun? It was even to the point that the matriarch would not even grant his request to have a martial showdown. In the matriarch's eyes, Yi Yun's value was not something he could compete with. This matter is already decided. Do not think of replacing Yi Yun, however, you can take advantage of the period where the God Burial Abyss's demon-like tidal strength has not weakened, and work hard cultivating. If you reach the peak of the Yuan Foundation realm, then you would not need to compete with Yi Yun for a spot. There are still a few spots left, so maybe you can obtain one of those. Lin Fingu's transmission meant that they had to take up second best. It was not impossible to obtain a spot for those who were at the peak Yuan Foundation realm and above. Peak of the Yuan Foundation realm. Lin Yu's eyebrows ticked. If the God Burial Abyss could be opened half a year later, then he could indeed break through to the peak of the Yuan Foundation realm before it happened. Even if it was shorter, he could still break through, but it would be inevitable that he would have progressed too fast in his cultivation level. His foundation would be affected by that. To geniuses, rashly breaking through was not a good thing. I understand. Lin Yu endured this grievance and sat back at his seat. At this meeting, there were 8 spots that were temporarily decided upon amongst the 10 spots. There were still 2 spots to be discussed in the future. With the matriarch's backing, Yi Yun had easily obtained one of the valuable spots. For this, it was inevitable that the Lin family's upper echelons and juniors would criticize this matter in secret. Many people believed that a family competition should have been held to decide who was to obtain the remaining spots. That was the most fair way. However, even with a family competition, it was hard to tell whose talent was better due to the differences in age. Some people who had good relationships with Lin Yu felt some injustice for Lin Yu. They felt that a genius like Lin Yu had been repressed by the family, while Yi Yun, of average strength, had obtained this advantage because of his backing. It was too unfair. For this matter, it was easy to cause people to feel a sense of resentment. However, because of this, Lin Fingu no longer added fuel to the flames. After being harshly reprimanded by the matriarch, Lin Fingu toned herself down. She knew that if she were to discuss this matter secretly, then it would be equivalent to speaking ill of the matriarch. She no longer dared to do anything that could make the matriarch unhappy, for if this reached the matriarch's ear, the consequences would be disastrous. Time will tell. While people were discussing this matter, Lin Fingu said with certainty. Her expression was confident, "It is all right even if Yuer did not manage to obtain the spot for those in the late stages of the Yuan Foundation realm and below. As long as Yuer makes a breakthrough, he can still obtain one of the 2 remaining spots. Fire is the test of true gold. Once he enters the Great Empress Mystic realm, Yuer will prove his worth. When that happens, Yuer will use his results to shut those who were laughing at him. He will also let those without abilities know what a genius is and what strength is. Those without abilities mentioned by Lin Fengdu naturally pointed to Yi Yun. She just did not dare making it clear. As for these discussions, Yi Yun was indifferent. Ever since the meeting ended, Yi Yun had gone into a reclusive chamber for training. There was at most 2 to 3 years for the opening of the Great Empress Mystic Realm, and the shortest time was a few months. No one knew when the God Burial Abyss demon-like tidal strength would reach its nadir. Yi Yun was planning to use this time to properly digest the pure yang energy inside the purple crystal. At the relic trial, Yi Yun had completely swallowed all of the pure yang energy essence that exploded out of the Great Empress relic. Now, the energy was stored in the purple crystal, so it was time to turn it into his strength. He knew that his strength would make a leap in a short amount of time. Not only Yi Yun, the other juniors who had been selected to enter the Great Empress Mystic Realm wasted no time at cultivating. As for the 2 remaining spots, they became something many of the juniors of the Lin family worked hard towards. People knew that this Great Empress Mystic Realm was of great importance. If one obtained a great opportunity within it by luck, then it would be like a carp leaping through the Dragon's Gate. Their future achievements would be limitless. This was an ancient peerless Great Empress heritage. In comparison, many large family clans in the Tian Yuan world were simply not on that level. Besides, if one could obtain an ancient recipe that could heal Lin Xintong, then they would obtain unimaginable honor and benefits. There might even be that slight chance of winning Lin Xintong's heart. In the Lin family, as long as they were separated by 3 generations of blood relatives, they could marry each other. Many of them had no genetic relationship with Lin Xintong. With all the possible benefits, people were all red-eyed. I will make the matriarch regret this. Under the bright moon, a youth dressed in blue clothes stood on a cliff. He inserted the sword in his hand into the rock as his eyes shimmered with non-acceptance. He was Lin Yu. The tides will change, those who despised me, Lin Yu, I will use my results to smack you in your faces.